The last item we have on the calendar today is the appointment of Keith Cardozo Jr., Vicing Associate Judge Deborah L. Olson as Associate Judge of the Rhode Island Workers' Compensation Court. We have already heard from Chief Judge Ferrari. We do have two other witnesses signed up to testify. We'll start with William Gardner. If you could just remain standing to be sworn in, please.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Gardner, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Chairwoman Lynch-Prada, members of the committee, I thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak on behalf of Keith Cardozo. My name is William Gardner. I am one of Keith's law partners in the firm of Izzo Gardner Cardozo in Providence. I've had the distinct pleasure of knowing Keith as a coworker and friend for the past 5.5 years and as a business partner for the past 2 years. As a friend, I can tell you that Keith is affable. Quite frankly, I think everybody likes Keith. He does take a genuine interest in people, and I think that's one of the things that makes him such a great friend. I think these are characteristics that speak to the temperament he'll have if he's given the privilege to sit on the bench in the Workers' Compensation Court. I've known him to be a great family man. I've known him since he dated his wife, Janelli. I believe I met her over the phone the very first day Keith came to work. I've known them since they've been engaged and married. I know Keith keeps an open home for his friends, his family, his in-laws. He's always welcomed everybody under his roof, and he truly has an amazing heart. As a coworker, I can tell you that he's always willing to sit down and help you work through a claim. He's very diligent. He's hardworking, and you never have to pick up any slack because he carries as much weight as he can possibly burden. I think he's an ideal coworker, and I've had that distinct pleasure. In that sense, I think he'll also be a great associate judge, and the judges would be very lucky to have him. I can tell you that when Keith originally started working, he worked as an employee attorney. I was working as a defense attorney at the time, and before he came to join the firm that we were originally part of, Keith stood out as somebody representing employees. He was unbelievably well prepared. He was a zealous advocate, and he did his best to represent injured workers. I soon came to find out that part of the reason for this is while most people were driving into the office, Keith had already been there for 2 or 3 hours. He's one of the earliest risers I know, and he puts in a very long day, so I think we'll get the most out of him if he is on the bench. As a business partner, I can tell you that's also a very unique way to get to know Keith, and it only affirmed everything I knew about his work ethic and about his heart. He's always striving to learn more. He's always striving to grow in any different way possible. He's certainly not afraid of a challenge or hard work. I think he quite frankly thrives on it. I can also tell you something that I think is very important and that you may not know just from knowing him in court is that he treats our staff like family. And I think you can tell a lot about a person by the way that they treat their subordinates or their employees. And again, I think this speaks to Keith's heart and to his temperament. I can tell you that he's lived in Rhode Island and he's been educated in Rhode Island. He's a Rhode Islander. He's been an amazing friend, a great business partner. And in a lot of ways, this is a very bittersweet moment. I'm potentially losing somebody who's been very close to me in a lot of ways. But I think the state that he's called home and the court that has essentially been his second home for so long would be well served to have him. So I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Senator Archambault.
I want to give a welcome to my cousin, Bill Gardner. Bill's grandfather is in O'Brien, and my mother was his sister. They introduced my late mom and dad. His grandmother was in Archambault, and my father was in Archambault. So they met through his grandparents. And anyways, I met Keith through you a couple of years ago, and he was very humble, very likable guy. You liked him right away. And your words go a long way with me because I know you. I've known you since you were born, and it resonates. And I've had the opportunity to talk to Keith after I've met you many times, and he's just seems like a real sincere, genuine guy. Looks you right in the eye, means what he says. So I appreciate you coming and testifying, and welcome, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Gardner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next witness, Senator Raptakis has asked that he be recorded in the affirmative on the recommendation of advice and consent for Richard Marola. If there's no objection, so ordered. The next witness we have for the advice and consent of Keith Cardozo is Jack DiGiovanni.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Chairperson Lynch-Prada, and all members of the committee. I do feel like it's an honor to appear before you. It's certainly an honor for me to be here in support of Keith Cardozo, who I consider to be a friend and a great man. And anything I say is not going to do him service, and I just want to be upfront about that. I'm also very nervous, so I just want to let you know that too. But I've been a practicing attorney, and specifically a practicing attorney at the Workers' Compensation Court for over 30 years. For a firm, Rappaport, DiGiovanni, Kasowitz, that's my firm that I practice at. I've known Keith for most of his professional career. I can unequivocally state that he will be an exceptional judge. Keith's legal acumen is without reproach and is combined with good common sense, which lots of people don't have, and I think is a very good quality. These factors lead to him having a great judgment, and I think he would be a tremendous asset to the Workers' Compensation Court. I've had the opportunity on many occasions over the years to be involved in cases with Keith. Obviously, I practice on the employee side exclusively, and for most of his career, Keith's practiced on the employer side. So I've had many cases where Keith and I have been adversaries, but nonetheless, I've always found him to be exceptional in his knowledge of the law and its application to the facts. He's always demonstrated to me a great temperament in dealing with even the most contentious cases. I mean, we have some real head-banging cases, but nonetheless, he's always attempted to take the time to talk to me, to understand what my client is going through, to try and reach an understanding as to what should happen in each case. He always zealously represents his client. He always makes sure to take the court's interests into account whenever we are appearing in front of the judges of the Workers' Compensation Court. I've always found his character to be exemplary. He's a good man. I mean, that's saying something. He's a good man. And he will be a great judge and an asset to the court. I've always found him to be hardworking. He applies himself on any issue or problem he faces. He's demonstrated to me, he's demonstrated himself to be a caring husband, a devout family man. He's devoted to his wife and his family. I'm always impressed with that. Also to his friends. I mean, he's a great friend. He's a good person to know. He's always very caring about what's going on in my life and other people's lives. He doesn't have to take the time to do that. He wants to do that, and that's a great character. I've also served with Keith on the Workers' Compensation Advisory Council, where he's been an active and contributing member. He's well respected in all that he does by both the bench and the bar. You couldn't find anyone that's better liked on both sides. He has participated in the Workers' Compensation bench bar through the years. He's also been an asset in that regard. So I can't recommend Keith enough. I really think that it's been an excellent choice. And I hope that he receives your support. Although I'm also here for Keith, I did want to take a moment to commend the selection of Ms. Pepin Fay. I think another outstanding choice for the court. I think they're both tremendous candidates. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for this witness? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is the last witness we have signed up to testify on this candidate. Is there anybody here who wishes to be heard before the candidate is called? Keith, come on up.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, members of the committee. I appreciate you spending the time to discuss this matter with me today. Before I start, I just wanted to indicate it's not lost on me how monumental it is to just make it this far in this process. I haven't forgot it, and I've been enjoying the ride every step of the way. With regards to my background, I grew up in South Providence. I loved it. You know, I know South Providence, particularly when I was growing up, generally got a bad rap, but I forged a lot of friendships there. I learned how to break up a lot of fights there. And generally, most of my friends from South Providence are doing very well. They're affluent in the community. They give back, and I try to do the same. I have both parents in my life. They're kind enough to be behind me. And my wife, who puts up with me, even though she doesn't show it, but we're expecting. So it's a very, very stressful time. But what I wanted to stress was because of my parents, I do believe I'm the right person for this judgeship because of my temperament. I've always interacted with every human being like they have value, and that's because people are always valuable to me. I've always spent the time to try to indicate to people that they should choose the right path as opposed to the easy path, because often, regardless of how bleak the situation is, when you do well and you know well, generally things work out for you. I have represented injured workers who haven't had enough money to keep their bills on, and I've had to zealously handle those cases. And then I started handling cases for the employers and insurance carriers, and I really do feel like it's provided a full-rounded perspective for me. I think a lot of what I do is about perspective. And the reason why I don't fly off or get loud with people, even though I can be aggressive on an argument, is because it's perspective. I realize that the other side's fighting for their client the same way I'm fighting for mine. So a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis is talking people off of ledges, because I want them to understand that what they want is important, what they care about is important, even if the law necessarily can't help them get that relief that day. And that's what I wanted to convey to the committee. If I am lucky enough to be appointed and serve the state, I will convey to every person who appears before me that even though they may not get the relief that they want that particular day, the Rhode Island Workers' Compensation Court will be there for them tomorrow, that they don't have to give up hope in the system simply because it didn't work out. I've spent the entirety of my life, and I realize I haven't practiced as much as some people, essentially devoted to meeting people, greeting people, and helping people. And Workers' Comp has provided me the vehicle to do that. We have the best bench, and in my opinion, the best bar around. And I think that I can add to that. I think that even though I've been practicing for 9 years, I've been exposed to different races, different religions, different socioeconomic backgrounds of people. I forced myself in those uncomfortable positions. I've been the only African American in a room full of 300 people, and I've made friends, and I've kept those friends my whole life. And I think with that comes a diversity of thought, a diversity of approach, which I can use to add to the bench, to enhance the great bench we already have, listen to people, and help people, more than I can do in private practice, which is why I'm here today.
Thank you. Senator Matz.
Yes, thank you. Keith, I'm very proud of you. And as you know, my advocacy for diversity of the courts, or the judges, goes way back. It goes back to the Clifton brothers and Walter Stone, when they told me years ago, if we could get someone of the quality of Walter Stone to apply for a judge, and I called Walter right up. And that's when Walter put his name in. So the diversity in our courts has always been so important to our community. And I was always confident that there are many highly qualified people like yourself, individuals, that all they needed was access to, and given a chance. And I knew there's people there that could fulfill this role and bring something, bring the diversity and the balance to the court that is only enhanced, because I think it was the late Bill Bradley said that diversity is our strength, not our weakness. And I want to thank the governor, and I certainly want to thank our Senate President, because I get him sometime. People don't say it. Senate President, back in the room, I call him Donnie. We need more black judges. We need more minority judges. And he listened to me. He more than, some people will hear you out of courtesy, and there's other people that listen. And so he listened to me, and I know that he was advocating on my behalf when some of these positions became available. So I certainly want to thank him, and certainly the governor, and everyone else that was involved in this process. And so this is a step in the right direction. We need more. I'm happy for you, but I know that we need more. And I was thrilled to see your father. When I saw the name, I was telling Chairwoman Lynch Prada, Keith Cardozo. I said, I just have someone on my basketball team, a student athlete that played for me at Central. Then I saw you. Then when I saw him today, but your father, what I want to tell you about your father, in the days of Central High School, when I first started, the won a lot of championships, but no one paid as much attention to the student side of the athlete as they should. And your father was one of those student athletes that I could count on to keep his grades up and to represent what I was trying to do, was change the culture at the time, to put more emphasis on the student than the athlete. And so your father was there, and then your family member, Paul. I went to Roger Williams with him. They called us Roger Williams. It was Roger Williams College then, but it's Roger Williams University now. And so him being active in the military and big in the American Legion, he always invites me to the Veterans Day ceremonies that the Adams Gladdings Post 69 has. So I see him quite a bit. And then it was the great-grandfather, Paul. So when I've been here 28 years, so when I was first in the House, he was my constituent who always encouraged me when I was running by the house, and I would go by and get his signature and everything. So that's to say that you come from a family of integrity. The Cardozo family is very well known, whether it's small business, all throughout the community on the South Side, and that's to say that looking at your qualifications and listening to people, the old saying is the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. You come from a great family. I'm very, very proud that you're in the position. I know that you'll do well, and you'll serve as a role model to the generations that are behind you. And certainly, I move the advice and consent, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Metz. Any other questions or comments? Senator Lombardi.
Thank you. Very briefly, Madam Chair. Keith, again, if I had to write your speech for you, it would have been exactly what I would have expected you to say just now. You described yourself hit the nail right on the head. Your demeanor came out in that speech that you gave without any writing on it, and that's the type of person that you are. And so you, again, much like Judge Marola did 20 minutes ago, where the elephant in the room about the fines, your elephant in the room is your alleged inexperience as a lawyer. Well, unfortunately or fortunately, you served before the Workers' Comp Court many times against me, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year if Bill Gardner votes to give you 2 weeks vacation in the firm. But you have a great sense of humor, great temperament. I have no doubt that you are going to be a perfect addition to this court, and the governor has hit it on the head again. And Senator Metz, while this is a appointment of color, I consider this appointment a colorless one because we've picked a qualified candidate to serve the Workers' Compensation Court. And Chief Judge Ferrari, you have been given 2 very valuable gifts today, and I congratulate you, my friend.
Thank you.
Senator Archibald.
Keith, just a quick thought. Your age may paradoxically be your greatest asset. I said this to you before. In time, taking nothing away from anybody else, you may find yourself the chief judge of that court. You're young. Life is long. So, God bless you.
Any other questions or comments for this candidate? With that, Senator Metz moves the advice and consent of Keith Cardozo Jr., vicing Associate Judge Deborah L. Olson for the Workers' Compensation Court. Seconded by Senator Archibald, Senator Lombardi, Senator Coyne, Senator Raptakis, President Ruggiero, Leader McCaffrey, Whip Goodwin, Senator De La Cruz, Senator Oyer, and Leader Algier. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The advice and consent is recommended. Congratulations.
Thank you.